welcome to another episode of More to the Story. I am Janna Maron. I'm your host. So great to have you here. Thank you for being here. In addition to this podcast, I also publish a literary arts magazine called Under the Gum Tree, publishing creative nonfiction and visual art. You can find out all about subscribing and submitting to have your work considered for publication at underthegumtree.com. This episode is also brought to you by Cafe Santoro, my parents' boutique coffee roastery in Northern California. And if you visit cafesantoro.com, that's C-A-F-F-E, because Cafe Santoro is Italian, meaning coffee the Santoro way. So when you get some of the roasted beans, the whole beans, you're experiencing coffee the way that my family experiences coffee. So visit cafesantoro.com/Janna for 10% off of your first order. And I say this every time. It's the best decaf I've ever had. And I'm not just saying that because it's my parents' coffee. I have only been drinking decaf for more than 10 years. So I drink it everywhere I go. And I can honestly tell you that of all the decaf I've tried over those years, this is the best. You can't even tell it's decaf. You drink it and you would question whether it's actually decaf because it's that good. Don't take my word for it. Head on over to cafesantoro.com/Janna to get your own order and give it a try. But maybe you don't drink decaf, and so then there's all kinds of different roasts that you can taste and see which one's your favorite. And I'm also a book coach and an editor for women writing true personal stories, whatever form of nonfiction that takes, whether it's a memoir, a collection of personal essays, a prescriptive nonfiction book. I can help you figure out where you might be stuck in your book project. And if you'd like to have a conversation with me about that, I offer free 15-minute book diagnosis calls. You can book one with me anytime. Just visit moretothestory.co/book diagnosis. And if you think that a book outline would be something that would help you on your book project, I offer a free book outline formula worksheet, which you can download at moretothestory.co/book outline. So I have another client interview conversation with you for you today with another client of mine who recently had a book released. It's very exciting when I can bring clients to you who have been working with me and now they're published authors. I cannot tell you how exciting it is for me to say, here's another client who came to me when she was just starting out, just trying to figure out what the book was about or trying to finish the book even. Many of my clients started working with me when they had a book in progress, but they didn't know how to finish it. They were stuck in some way. And now several of them, almost 10, I'm starting to lose track because there's so many, which makes me really proud to say, but this is another one of those women who, when she started with me, her book was, probably what we could call a shitty first draft, like just kind of like dumping as much as she possibly can on the page. Had gone through it once with a family member who also works as more of a technical editor. You'll hear more about those details in the conversation as we get into it. But before I give too much away, let me introduce to you Brinn Langdale. At 22, Brinn began confronting her own childhood trauma, setting her on a lifelong journey of healing and forgiveness. Today, she runs a thriving private practice as a licensed psychotherapist, speaker, and author. Brinn's core message that everything you do makes perfect sense and that healing is possible resonates with a wide range of audiences, including students, professionals, survivors, and anyone seeking personal growth and self-improvement, which is a really great way to introduce Brinn's book, which is also titled Everything Makes Perfect Sense. It's a memoir of her own healing and forgiving journey. And she talks about how she came up with that title as it's tied in with very deeply into the work that she does, as you could hear in that brief intro that I was using to share and introduce her to you. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Brinn.
Hi, Brinn. I'm so excited to talk to you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Janna. I'm so excited to see you and chat with you too.
Yeah, and congratulations because your book just recently came out. So let's start with you just introducing yourself, telling us a little bit about who you are, and of course, your book.
Yes, so Brinn Langdale, I'm a licensed marriage family therapist. So I have a private practice and I work one-on-one with people, usually adults dealing with trauma. And I am also a speaker and a writer, and of course, just published a memoir. So it's the story of the first 30 years of my life, essentially, and it's called Everything Makes Perfect Sense, A Young Woman's Journey to Healing and Forgiveness.
And what's it about? Can you share?
Yeah. So it is about, like I said, the first 30 years of my life, and I experienced a lot of childhood trauma. And there was everything, I experienced emotional, physical, and sexual abuse within my home. And it was all really secretive and didn't know I'd really compartmentalized, specifically the sexual abuse. And it came out in all these ways. I was kind of a poster child for trauma without even realizing it. A lot of, addiction, eating disorders, self-harm, like all sorts of things. And I just thought I was crazy. I just thought that I was broken, that there was something wrong with me. I didn't know if it was my parents' divorce or, the tumultuous relationship I had with my mom. Like, I really just thought I was fundamentally broken. And then it all kind of came out that I was asked a very direct question, and I was asked if I had been sexually abused, and the answer was yes. And so that really was a huge turning point in my life. And at 18, excuse me. At 22, I decided to go on a really deep healing journey and discovered that everything I had felt, seen, dealt with, all made absolute perfect sense given everything I'd been through in life. Yeah. And that was, that question of like, why does this all make perfect sense was my mentor and my therapist at the time. It was his way of really validating everything I had been through. And that's why I decided to create use that as the title of my book, Everything Makes Perfect Sense, is because it was just these light bulb moments, one after the other of like, wow, this is why I did what I did. This is why I felt how I felt. This is why everything was the way it was because of all of the things that I had experienced.
Yeah. That's such a perfect tie-in for your story, especially. But when I was hearing you describe it just now, I feel like that's a lot of why writers, in particular women, write memoir, because we are making sense of our experiences through the writing. And a lot of times the writing is part of the healing process. So
yeah.
I was going to ask you to talk a little bit about how the book came about for you and how you decided to write about this experience that you had, especially given the sensitive nature of some of these topics.
So I didn't call myself a writer, but I have been a writer my entire life. I was the one, documenting my day in third grade. And, I have bags and bags of journals, tons and tons and tons of notebooks. And writing for me has always been what, you said. It was like making sense of my world, making sense of these experiences, and also a way for me to feel seen. I think for me, writing has also been like, this is real, this is happening, this is what I'm experiencing. And so my healing journey, I spent basically all of my 20s just deep in my healing journey, doing all sorts of different holistic healing techniques. And my 29th year, I dedicated that to forgiving my abusers. And I ended up cultivating forgiveness by my 30th birthday. And I'm really proud of that. And it was somewhere around that time that I decided that I really wanted to share my story. I've always kind of known that I had a different life.
Yeah.
Ever since I was a little kid, I thought somebody was so this is what I thought when I was a kid. When I was a kid, I thought I was gonna become a famous actress and that somebody would do an autobiography on me, just like when I read Julia Roberts' biography when I was a kid.
I love it.
So that's how I thought it was going to manifest for me. But little did I know it would actually be me writing my own story to help other people who were also going through similar things that I had gone through. And And I knew the whole time that I had a compelling story. And so sharing it with the world, it was just kind of like time finally caught up with me, right? It was finally time to do that. And I went to a friend's house for New Year's Eve on, December 31st, going into 2020, going into January 2020, none of us knew what 2020 would bring.
Right.
But I went to her house, and she was also a therapist, and I was a young budding therapist at the time. And she and I spent all night talking about my childhood, and it really just stirred. It was kind of the catalyst that I needed. And I went home at 6 a.m. the next morning and started writing my book. And I just word vomited for about 5 months because, shutdown happened. And I was in a position where I had a lot of time on my hands, and I just wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote. And it was really fascinating for me. You might find this interesting. I started with the end first. I wrote my book backwards. I started with my forgiveness journey, that year-long forgiveness journey that I went on. I started with that. I wrote that first, maybe because it was the closest to me at the time. But and then from there I went kind of from the beginning, and that was that. And that was almost 6 years ago right now. Yeah.
And where were you in the process when you and I started working together?
So that was 2020. Then I had my sister read it. My sister went through it. She's, English major, technical editor for software companies. And she and I went through it together, and it was actually a really healing experience for me and her, because she was out of the house by the time. She was 13 years older than I am. So she was out of the house by the time a lot of this was going on. So she wasn't really a part of my life in that way. So we had a really bonding experience. So she went through and kind of edited it, but I knew it needed so much more work. And I knew it wasn't even close to being a book that people could, that I could sell and read. And because of the sensitive nature of it and the vulnerability and how exposed I do feel, I really wanted it to be good. I wanted it to be a good story. I didn't want it to just be a trauma dump on somebody and be this like heavy, because I've read memoirs like that.
Yes.
And, where it's just like, you don't even want to keep reading. I wanted mine to be a good story and to, kind of pull you in. And I was not at the level of writing where I could do that yet. So I knew I needed a lot of help. And I believe it was fall of 2021 that I kind of put a prayer out there to the universe, honestly. I hadn't worked on it in about 6 months. And I was working full time, seeing tons and tons of clients, burning myself out. And I was like, I just want to quit my job and work on my book. And I want help.
Yeah.
And so I essentially did that. I remember I had just started dating my partner, and I called him one day, and I was just like, I want to quit my job and write my book and open my own private practice. And he was like, do it. Go.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And, and I did that. I opened a private practice, reduced my client load by a lot, and started working with you. And it was like a prayer being answered.
Aw, that means so much to hear you say that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then after you worked with me, we basically took your manuscript through a round of developmental editing where there's a lot of feedback and revision and cycles of that happening. And when I work with clients, I'm always telling them, okay, the manuscript that you finished with me is ready for next steps. Like whatever those next steps are is up to you. And we work together and help you figure out what those next steps are. So what were the next steps for you once we finished the revision on your manuscript?
Yeah. So I think I put it on hold for a while because I wasn't sure what that next step did look like for me.
Yeah.
So I did have it on hold for a while. And then I worked with another editor. Because again, there was just this like, I need it to be a certain level. And I just didn't trust and maybe that's a me thing, you know, there was like, I wanted to like just keep going at it.
Well, which is totally, I'm going to like interject there because a lot of writers get stuck in that. It needs more, it needs more, it needs more, it needs more. It's, it can be a safe space where you're working on your book, you're working on your book, you're working on your book, you're working on your book.
And if you're working on your book, you never have to put your book out there.
That's right.
Yes. So I definitely did that.
Okay.
But I will say this. I don't know what everybody's into, but this is my experience. I'm a very spiritual person.
Yeah.
I did have a conversation with a psychic, and she was like, "You're a writer." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm a writer." And she's like, "Are you working on a book?" And I was like, "Yes, I am." And she told me it would take longer than I thought. And I was like, every year that passed, I'd be like, this is the year, this is the year, this is the year. And then, you know, kind of talking with her a couple years in, she was like, no, you need a little bit more experience under your belt. And I really, that kind of like relaxed me a little bit. It kind of took some of the pressure off. And I have realized that I have needed this last few years for me to be okay having this out in the world.
Yeah. That's huge.
Yeah. Yeah. It really is, because I am somebody who likes things fast. I like things done. I want to move on to the next thing. I just want it done and move on to the next thing. That's a very like classic thing that I do. But this project felt different. It was like, it really forced me to like slow down and listen to myself, because there were things that even some of the developmental editing that you gave me, I had to really listen to myself, because I made changes from that. And it wasn't because you were wrong or I was right or anything. It was because I had a vision for my book and I needed to listen to that. And that happened with a couple of other editors too. And that's a huge lesson for me as somebody who has spent my adult life trying to find my voice and like working on advocating for myself. That was a huge step, because to me, editors they're the professionals. They know what they're doing, you know? But a big lesson for me has been like, this is my work. This is my vision. This is my art. And I'm really glad that I got to experience that. I'm glad I got to experience having that little bit of like, you know what? I'm actually going to do things a little bit my way right now, because that has been a really huge learning lesson for me and a growth opportunity. Yeah.
Well, and I will say that a good editor should help you do that.
Yeah.
That's what I aspire to do. And the way that I work with my writers is I'm a reader. At the end of the day, really all an editor is a professional reader. And I'm here to give you my experience of reading your work and to help you figure out how do you want to make that reading experience the best it possibly can be and as smooth as it possibly can be. Not to tell you that this is the way you should do it, but here's my reaction, here's my reflection, here are my questions. Now, Brinn or whoever, how do you want to shape this? How do you want to go about figuring this out? But you're right. You as the writer and the author have to come to a place of that self-trust that you're talking about to be able to be like, okay, this is all really good feedback, really good input. This is all just data. Now, what do I want to do with this data? Yeah,
exactly. And I think in the first few years of me working on my book, I didn't take it as data. I took it as fact.
Sure.
You know, I took it as, oh, Janna's telling me to do something. I need to do this. You know what? That's kind of like, it's even like a cop-out for me.
Sure. Yeah.
It's a cop-out because I'm like, oh, my editor told me to do it. I have to do it.
Because then you don't have to be responsible for making
Nope.
the decision.
Nope. Exactly. And I don't have to think about what I actually want.
Right.
And so I think there were a lot of really, like, all that to say, I think there were a lot of reasons why this book took as long as it did. And compared to others, it was, nothing. Some people, spend 20 years on a book. But I'm really grateful for all of the lessons and how it all has all come to be and how it is now. And yeah, it's been quite the ride.
Yeah. So talk a little bit more about the publishing experience. You found a publisher. It's a hybrid publisher. The book is now out in the world. What does that feel like? You're a published author. So talk about that.
Yes. Being a published author is very surreal.
Yeah,
I know, I'm looking at my book right now and it has like...
Hold it up.
Okay.
Because there will be a video version of this on YouTube. So beautiful.
Has my name and, it's so pretty. And
Yep.
Yeah, so it is, it's quite surreal. And yeah, I have a hybrid publisher, which, has been really helpful because they took care of all of, the formatting and the editing. I went through another round of, lots of editing with them as well. And, they were supportive in helping me kind of organize my, my launch. I did like a virtual launch because most of the people in my life are on the other side of the country. So it was really nice to bring people in from all over and have that celebration. But yeah, it's been quite a journey all in its own. A lot of I have to write the book summary and I have to get people to read it before it comes out and give me testimonials or feedback. There's been a lot to it that goes into it besides just writing a book.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, congratulations. It's a huge accomplishment and you have been working on it for a very long time. So, is there anything you've been facing that is challenging or a struggle that you want to talk about or share, or you did talk about like lessons learned from the writing. So maybe lessons learned from the publishing experience.
Yeah, I think with publishing, it can be really overwhelming to figure out what you want to do. Do you want to find an agent? Do you want to, submit on your own? Do you want to do traditional? Do you want to do hybrid? Do you want to do self? That whole thing is really overwhelming in its own self. So I just really want to normalize that for anybody who's listening.
Yeah.
And figuring out, and I think what's really helpful is figuring out your own timeline of when do you want it published? Is that a really big factor for you? Do you want the ability to make changes after it's published? Because if you go with a publisher, it's harder. It's not impossible, but it is harder to make changes. Where if you self-publish, if you want to make a change on a Friday night, all you got to do is
upload a new file.
Yeah, it can be a lot simpler and and so, but there's a lot of work. There are a lot of pros and cons either way. But yeah, after publication, one thing about being a memoir writer that I've heard a lot about is that, people aren't always going to be happy with what you write about.
Yeah.
And that can be really challenging. And I'm really grateful that I've encountered some of that. But I was kind of surprised at some of the reactions that I've been getting. And it's also a lesson in me standing in my truth and me being okay with sharing with the world and sharing with people who know me and my family. And that was part of the whole me needing to be ready to handle this.
Yeah.
Is I needed to be ready to stand in my truth and to not, buckle under the pressure of somebody not liking what I had to say.
Yeah.
Because this is my story, this is my work, this is my art, and if they don't like it, then that's okay.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to ask, and you don't have to share, but because you mentioned that it's a story about abuse that happened in the home, um, and now that the book is out and the reactions are kind of coming in, and you can talk generally, or if you're not comfortable talking at all, that's fine too. Like, how are you dealing with the family? I'm assuming some of those reactions are probably coming from family.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been shocking, actually, to have these negative reactions because I have been very supported by my family. It's been 20 years since knowledge of the abuse came out. And in that time, I've spent 15 of those years deep in psychological work, trauma work, helping others, helping myself. And I have really great relationships with a lot of my family members. And there's been a lot of healing in general with a lot of the people in my family. Other people have also done their own healing work and their own healing journey. And, we've talked about many things. I'm really grateful that I have a family that is open to doing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know that's not the case for everybody. That being said, there are things in this book that some family members had no idea about.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the hard part.
Yeah.
And not because it wasn't a purposeful thing. It wasn't purposeful that I didn't purposely keep anything from anybody. It either never came up or it was never asked about or it didn't feel like a safe space for me to share.
Yeah.
So now here we are and the information is out, and I think there's a lot of guilt and shame and shock that some of my family members are going through right now because they weren't in a position to have those conversations earlier. Because I have had those conversations with many different family members, and there's a reason those weren't happening with the people who are shocked.
Yeah. And they're just finding out now because now is when they're reading the book now that it's published. So has that given you any sort of thinking around, would it have helped or changed things if maybe you had given them an opportunity to read it in advance of publishing?
Yes, I don't think they would have read it in advance of publishing. And I also told them I didn't think it was good for them to read.
Okay.
And I also, I didn't, some things are better left unknown.
Yeah.
And I have a protective nature. I don't want people to read things just because they want to, it's like I want them to know what they're getting into.
Yeah. Yeah.
And even though they were warned, these conversations were attempted, not just by me, but by other people too.
Yeah. Yeah.
And denial is pretty hardcore sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, that can be challenging. I know this is a big topic that writers of memoir in particular are always having debates on, like, what's the best approach? How do we do it? Like, and it really is going to be individual. Like, you have to figure things out as you navigate the dynamics of your own family system effectively, right? Like,
yes.
Just like there's no one size fits all publishing formula, there's no one size fits all to how to deal with your family when you're writing about them in your memoir.
Yes. That being said, I did have, I did have family members read it, and it was discussed if I should keep something in or take it out. Like, I did take my family into consideration.
Before you're talking about before publishing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I also decided not to put certain things in my book.
Yeah.
Because, one, I didn't feel like it was necessary. 2, maybe it wasn't my story to share. 3, I just didn't need to.
Yeah. And that was based on input and feedback that you got from family.
And myself. And
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
That's an important process, I think.
Yeah, I heard the writer Laura Davis.
Uh-huh.
Laura Davis talks about that, how she wrote a book along about her and her mother's relationship, and kind of there was, her brother was in it too, and there was something that she changed on request, and, kind of told them like, hey, if there's anything in you cannot live with, please tell me.
Yeah.
And, and so I think that was kind of something that it's okay to do that. It's okay to let somebody have some input if it is really going to be. And there are things that, my mom really has a hard time with one aspect of the book, but I've had many conversations with her around why I am keeping that in the book.
Yeah.
And it was a non-negotiable for me.
Yeah.
And she understands that. Mm-hmm. She doesn't like it, mm-hmm. but she understands it because we've had multiple conversations mm-hmm. around it. And there's just, this one aspect that she really is not very happy with, but I had to do what, in that case, it was something that I couldn't not put in there.
Yeah. And I think that what you're talking about is maybe one of the most important things, the conversation.
Yes.
If you're willing to have that conversation and listen, and you can both share what you need from the outcome, even if the other person isn't happy or doesn't like it or whatever, you have given them an opportunity to say what they need to say, to share why this is impacting them the way that it is. And I think that's one of the most valuable things that writing a book like this can do in a person's life and in a family is, and I think Brene Brown is the one who sort of, we all know that she's the one that's brought this topic of shame into like public discourse, mm-hmm. but I like the way that she talks about it because it's very specific on one of the things she says frequently is that shame grows in the darkness and in the secret, in hiding.
Yep.
And so, yes, it's hard especially to be the one who is charged with shining the light. And that's what you're doing with your story and your book. You're the one shining the light. Anyone else out there who's writing a memoir about a hard topic or trauma or abuse is the one shining the light. And it's hard to be that person. And it's the only thing that's going to dispel the shame is the light.
Absolutely. Completely agree.
So thank you so much for sharing about your experience, and tell everyone where people can find more about you and your book, of course, because now everybody's going to want to go read it.
Yes. So brinnlangdale.com will get you all of that information.
Excellent.
How to read the book, find the book, work with me, anything. You can all find it there.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brinn. It was such a great conversation. So love talking to you and connecting with you.
Yeah. Thank you, Janna.
Thank you again, Brinn, for taking the time to chat with me and share your journey and talk about your book and even some of the challenges that you're facing. I know it's going to be really helpful to a lot of listeners. And be sure to check out Brinn's book, Everything Makes Perfect Sense, anywhere books are sold. Visit brinnlangdale.com for more about Brinn and her work. And don't forget to check out cafesantoro.com/Janna for 10% off your first whole bean coffee order from my parents' boutique coffee roastery here in Northern California. And don't forget those other 2 links where you can check out my resources and potentially working with me. I offer that free 15-minute book diagnosis call, which you can schedule at morethestory.co/book diagnosis. And you can get my free download for the book outline formula. Only if you think an outline would help your book project. And I have talked about when I think outlines are helpful and when I don't find them helpful. So head back into some of the most recent episodes on More to the Story and look for those episodes on genre and outlines to help determine if an outline would be helpful for you. And if you think it would be, check out moretothestory.co/book outline for my free book outline formula worksheet. You can follow me on Instagram at Janna Marlise. You can follow Under the Gumtree on Instagram at Under Gumtree. And the theme song is written and performed by Janna Maron. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you soon on the next episode of More to the Story.